Sellers who bought in 2020, 2021, 2022, the height of the market, are getting a big reality check right now. Homes that used to take 1 day to sell are sitting on the market 30, 40, 100, 200 days. And here's the part that's shocking people. A lot of these sellers are pricing the home and listing it at the price they paid for back when they bought it. And the market's telling them their home is worth less. This is not a warning. This is a window. Because the home that you want, they've corrected. And the home that you're sitting on has corrected, but has not corrected as much as those homes that you want to move up to. Today, I'm going to show you why these sellers are struggling, why their homes are sitting, and why this is a very important time in the real estate market and opportunities I haven't seen in years. I'm also going to show you 3 real examples that are sitting on the market right now where the homeowners purchased back in 2020, 2021. And then also a real story where my clients have jumped on these opportunities and share with you what they've purchased. So let's get into it. So the market has flipped hard. Let's start off with where we are today. So back in 2020, 21, 22, the market was chaotic. It's a full seller's market. People were lining up to get into open houses. And if you're interested in that house that you just saw, you're competing with 50, 20 different offers. And the buyers, they're paying whatever it took to get that home. Fast forward to 2025. Totally different world. Inventory is up. Sales are down along with prices. Buyers, for first time in years, they have options and they have time to think. This emotional shift is very important. Back in 2020, 21, it was FOMO, fear of missing out. So if you're in a condo or condo townhouse right now, it's quite interesting. First, let's talk about condos. Yes, they softened, they corrected, it is up, but it might be bottomed soon because you see a lot of things. Because the stats show that year over year, prices are only about 3% lower than they were a year ago. Because that price correction compared to last year, month over month, it's getting smaller. But when you're looking at a house, detached, semi, townhouses, freehold that is, they've softened as well. But they've come down in more of a significant number when you look at dollar per dollar. And I did a video on this recently where I showed the gap, the difference between a condo and condo townhouse to a freehold home. It's the smallest gap it's been in years. So here's the key problem why some of these listings are sitting in the market. So a lot of sellers that purchased in 2020, 21, 22, they're anchored to the price that they paid for their home. They think, we're in Toronto, paid that amount, should at least sell it for that amount. Here's the secret. The market doesn't care what you paid for your home. The market cares about what buyers can afford to pay for today and willing to pay for today. You have to remember, interest rates are higher. Competition's a little bit different. And same thing with the mindset and the economy. And that gap between what a seller thinks their home is worth to what a buyer is willing to pay for it is pretty big, in my opinion, for some of these homes. Because if a seller's so unrealistic with their pricing, they're totally out to lunch. They'll never sell for that price. But you know what? Since they have a Toronto home, they might think that their home is resilient to the ups and downs, which they're not. So what does this mean? This means that if you're a move-up buyer right now, you have leverage. So when a seller prices their home, overpriced their homes that is, and it sits, your negotiation power goes up. As you know, the longer a home sits in the market, the more desperate potentially a seller can get. I'm going to just break this down exactly and how to use this to your advantage. So let's cover why sellers are struggling right now. The number one reason these properties are sitting. They're overpriced. And they're not overpriced by a crazy amount. Well, some of them aren't. They're just priced at what the seller paid for back in 2020, 21, or even 22. That's it. But affordability in 2025, as I covered earlier, is a lot different. And when buyers are buying right now, they're not as emotional, I find. And they're buying strategically. I find buyers are not emotionally bidding anymore. So if you're priced high in this market, buyers move on because there are a bunch of other choices that they could go look at. The other thing that you probably notice is that listings are higher right now. They sit longer on the market. So that means that buyers don't have to fight over a house. They can walk away. They can compare 5 to 10 properties before deciding to make an offer. And they're not desperate anymore. All of these things put pressure on sellers. And even if the seller was not a purchaser back in 2020, they're also watching the market and see what the neighbors paid for and see what the neighbors sold for. And sellers always think, but but my neighbor sold for X amount back in 2021, and they think that's the real value. But here's what buyers think. Why would I pay a 2021 price for a home that's listed in 2025 when there's other homes on the market that are priced correctly? So when interest rates went up, they didn't crash the real estate market. But what they did was expose areas and homes that were very inflated. Detached homes were one of them, and they got hit hard. And not just type of properties, areas as well. Remember, there was an exodus trying to leave the city. But now the reverse is happening, especially with all the back to work orders, back to the office that is. I'm going to imagine that condos are going to start rebounding soon because of that. Once homeowners start feeling the pressure of commuting and coming back to the office, it's going to add a lot of strain. And that 1.5 to 2 hour commute is going to look pretty painful every day. I was just working with a client recently. I was going to keep their names confidential, but they were looking for a home to move up to. They're living in a 2-bedroom condo. Need a little bit more space. And we're looking, and finally found a detached home that had everything they were looking for, everything. And right before putting an offer, we're doing the market analysis, look at pricing, what has been selling in the area. And as I was pulling up data information, I noticed that the list price was very similar to what the seller paid for back in 2020, almost identical. Well, you see the history as well, though. They did try to sell for about $200,000 to $300,000 more a few months ago. It didn't work. The market told them, no, you're overpriced. So having said that, we ended up putting an offer very close to what they paid for back in 2020. They had a little bit more updates, but not by much though. But it was a great house that had a lot of great features. It's only 8 years old in Toronto. That's a rare property to find. Anyways, after some hard negotiations, the seller took our price. So my client ended up buying in 2025 a house that they loved, but priced at 2020. And this was what happens when you understand how market cycles work early. Let me show you a few properties right now that are sitting on the market. These are properties that were purchased in 2020. You see what's going on. So this house is in clearly Birchmount area in Scarborough. If you take a look at it, great home, great curb appeal. There's carpets and everything, but it's good size. Look at the size of those rooms, family room, it's good space. Has garage as well. But the interesting thing about this home is that when you look at the history, you see that the first time it was sold was 2018 for $786. And then the current owner purchased it for $195. There's a big increase in these 3 years, $200,000. And then they try to sell it back in 2024. For whatever reasons, they're trying to sell for over $200,000 less. It's probably all their fees and all the things they're thinking about, trying to make themselves whole. As you can see, they dropped it to 1.2, 1.1. Now it's $1,070,000. Been on the market for almost a year. They've been testing the price for obvious reasons. You can see that it did not sell. It's still on the market right now. And it looks like a decent place. It's 4 bedrooms, 4 baths. Here's another property in Scarborough area, South Woodrow. I used to live on the street many years ago. You see that originally purchased in 2021 for $1 million. It currently listed at 1.269 for sale. It's been listed since 2024. It's been a year at this price. They're still trying to sell it. There's no pictures of the inside. It's maybe it's tenanted. I'm not sure, but you see right now, it's another example where sellers are stuck in 2021. And there's one in North York. So this property, listed at 1.1 to the inside. It's not bad space. Semi-detached, lots of garden, good entryway. You can see hardwood throughout. By the way, you see the history of this property. You see that it was originally sold at $742, and then the spike, as we saw in the previous listing, spiked about $400,000 almost. Crazy in a matter of 5 years, $100,000 a year. But that was the normal back then. And then back in 2025, they tried to sell it for exactly what they listed it for. And this has been on the market since June. It's been 5 months already. So home-wise, no, they're not completely, they're still maybe a little bit on the higher end at their current price. You see already, based on the market telling them it's not worth it, right? The seller is overpriced. By the way, here's another example. So there's a bunch of these sitting on the market right now. These are just 3 examples. So all these properties, it seems like they're not even adjusting the price. A lot of times in this market, you have to listen to the market. You list it, and if you don't get any showings, you need to adjust price immediately. The market's telling you right away that you're completely out to lunch in pricing compared to the neighborhood, that you're totally not even in line. If you hit the market, you have a handful of showings and no offers, you're still overpriced. The market's telling you already. What it comes down to is that every home's going to sell for a certain price. It will. Let's play devil's advocate a little bit. Why not move up in today's market? Because moving up is not for everyone. And here are my reasons to share with you why you should not move. Rates might fall next year, the way the economy is right now. But you know what? The inflation might keep it the way it is. But if you're rate sensitive, I would hold off. It might reduce your payment. Maybe. We just don't know. Prices can continue to slide down. It might be unlikely because if you're moving up into the semi-detached market, that market's sitting about 2 to 3 months of inventory, meaning it's a seller's market. Not a crazy strong seller's market, but still a seller's market. But in secondary neighborhoods, you might get away with softer prices. You have to uproot your life a little bit to sell. That's the other reason. So if you have a condo, you have to get it ready. I'm at the stage, I'm at to do repairs. So there's going to be some work involved. So if you're too busy with life right now, I may put it on hold for a bit. The other thing is your finances. You have to make sure you're okay with buying a house. Mortgage-wise, all the extra expenses come with it. Your cash flow is going to come down for sure. You might not need the space yet. Maybe it's a 5-year plan that you need it. You might not need to move right away. Why pay for a house where all the extra space is going to be wasted for the next few years? Here's another one. It depends on the type of homeowners you are. You might hate seeing the market dip after you buy. Some people just can't handle that emotionally. I get it. I don't want you to have buyer's remorse. So that's the flip on why you shouldn't move. So here's the thing. Should you move up now? I can't make that decision for you. Here's something to think about though. You don't need to catch the bottom of the market. It's pretty much impossible. I talk about this a lot, even myself and a lot of the top agents in the city. I guarantee you they cannot time the market. You just have to enter the cycle, the real estate cycle that is, that benefits you. And right now, that move up opportunity, it's the window that hasn't come across too often in Toronto real estate. So detached homes, semi-detached homes, they've corrected. They have. They've come down a lot since the peak, about $2,000 to $3,000 less than they were back during the height. Condos have come down too, but dollar for dollar, it still didn't come down as much as houses have. The good thing is negotiation power is back. And you can also put in contingencies like financing conditions, home inspection conditions. That was unheard of 3 years ago. So here are reasons for you to move up. You plan to stay in the next house 7+ years. You need more space today. You can't wait a couple more years. You ran out of space 5 years ago. You want a yard. You want privacy. You want a better school. You just want to not deal with elevators anymore. But you have to be comfortable with the monthly payments. It is going to be higher. And here are the reasons to wait. You're betting heavily on rate cuts. Your income is uncertain. Don't take a plunge if you're not sure about your employment. You don't need room yet. You don't want to move out of your neighborhood. You love all the amenities, but you can't buy a house in that area. So one of the things that I learned in the last 16 years of real estate is to read real estate cycles. This is my 3rd correction I'm working through. And what's happening right now in the cycle? We're in the late correction, early stabilization part of the real estate cycle. Historically, when you look back, 2017, 2009, this is where move-up buyers win. Like prices have corrected. It might come down a little bit more though. I'm going to tell you that. But how much more they can come down? Probably not significant in my opinion. There's some sellers that are very vulnerable, that are very open to negotiations. They are. There's a bunch out there. Buyers have leverage. Inventory is up. So you have choices and leverage. And competition has been the lowest it's ever been. And you can negotiate on properties in good areas that you were never able to before. And this is how move-up buyers get ahead in this market. Anyways, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.